Hey there, Coach Jordan. So today I want to talk to you about something, the Hunger Games, right? But maybe not the way that you think of the Hunger Games, right? The book and the movies. I want to talk to you about a question, which is how hungry are you for the realization of your vision? How hungry are you to go out and achieve your dream? I have found over the coaching calls and trainings and the work that I've done that hunger is one of the biggest things that makes the biggest differences. And if there's any one skill that I've been working on as a coach lately, it's this one. That's how do I make my people hungrier? How do I make them want it more? And I learned early on in coaching people that as it relates to achievement, as it relates to the realization of a dream, if we have clarity on what it is that we want, it really just boils down to the two M's, which is mindset and mechanics. See, mechanics is knowing what to do and how to do it. It's understanding the skill set of what it is that you're out to achieve. Mindset, on the other hand, is taking those mechanics and having the mindset, the willingness to employ them over time and ultimately realize your goal through the actions of your mechanics. And if you think about most people who aren't achieving what it is that they want, do you think it's because they don't know what to do or how to do it? Or do you think it's because they're just not doing what they know consistently over time? And see, that was one of the greatest discoveries I made as a coach is interference and obstacles. And I would encourage you to join us for a free or for a full day session, My Freed Life, because we unpack this at a really high level. But what I want you to understand is that if you're going to achieve something, the thing that I see time and time again is that we approach it in the wrong order. We approach it with how and then why. So how am I going to do it? What's my plan? And it puts us into this never-ending loop of looking for more information that we aren't applying. In fact, I was talking to a person this morning. It was a coaching call with one of my clients, and she was telling me about all the books she was reading in classes and how at times it feels like we're just drowning in information, and I can totally relate to that. And I thought, maybe it's time for an information diet. I even encouraged her. I said, you need to clean out your inbox. You need to unsubscribe and start looking at books in a different manner. One of the questions I like to ask people is, if you could only read one book right now, which book would it be? If you could only read one, which one would it be? But the question I ultimately asked her, and at the same time asked myself, is, if you just stopped learning all new information and just executed what you already knew, how much better would you be? If you just stopped the process of learning and acquiring new information and just executed what you already knew, how much better would you be? I think that's a really great question that we should be asking ourselves. And yet, if we're looking at hunger, I would like to know, how hungry are you towards the development or towards the realization of your dream? And I think of this as something that all of us have experienced at a time, what I would consider to be latent forces of hunger. See, I think that most people are capable of achieving whatever it is that they want, but they aren't good at activating their awesome. They're not good at tapping into the wells of latent potential that lie within them. And if you don't know what latent means, that means basically asleep. There are forces in you, there is energy and activation in you that is resting, that is latent, completely untapped. And so one question that I've learned to ask people over the years is this one, and I'll put this down below so that you have it, but it's, tell me about a time that you really wanted something. I mean, you wanted it bad, and you had no idea how you were going to get it. In fact, it may seem impossible that you weren't ever going to be able to get it, but you knew in your heart that you would, and you did. So tell me about a time that you really wanted something. That could be big or small. That could be, I wanted this car, or I remember one time there was a lady I was coaching who told me she wanted to make the cheerleading team in the 8th grade, right? But something big or small, and you had no idea how you were going to get it. In fact, it seemed impossible, but you knew in your heart that you would, and you did. I want you to really think about that. See, mine was when I had a friend of mine who passed away in 2007, and at our 10-year high school reunion, we wanted to find a way to honor him, and so we decided to build a treehouse in our local park, and the treehouse was like $25,000, and at that point, I barely had 2 nickels to rub together, and yeah, I knew we were going to build that treehouse. I was committed to building that treehouse, and so we just took one step after the other, and before I knew it, we had a concert, we raised the money, we had it donated from another place, and that treehouse was built within about a year of the idea originating within us. So, what is it for you? I'll never forget, I was coaching a lady one time, and I asked her that question, and she said to me, it was buying my first home. And I said, that's interesting. What was significant about buying your first home? And she said, well, I'm a first generation immigrant. She had immigrated from Mexico. And she needed to establish residency so that she could move her parents from Mexico. She lived in Arizona to Arizona. And she started out in a country that she didn't know the language all that well. She was started into an industry, as you know, that doesn't guarantee a paycheck, and yet she was tenacious. And she said, I just coached myself through it. I kept myself going. And eventually she looked up, had the down payment, got into a loan program that helped immigrants buy homes, and she bought that property. And I said, well, isn't that interesting? I said, so if you unpack that, we can elicit your strategy for tapping into your hunger, right? See, for her, it was because she had this why. I've got to get this place for my parents. I've got to have this place that my family can call their own so that we can lay down roots, we can have a foundation. And see, if you've got a handle on that, I think it was Frederick Nietzsche or whatever his name is, said that if you have a big enough why, you can withstand any how. And what she really did is she stood in a possibility. She stood in the possibility that she could and would realize that as something that she would do for her parents. And, over the years, I've collected a series of quotes and things, and one of my all-time favorites, this is actually from page 81 in the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, but this is what Gary says. He says, I've learned in life that if you believe something is possible, you tend to focus on the constructive means necessary to make that possibility a reality. I've also learned the opposite. If you don't think something is possible, you will be blinded to the ways that it could be done. It is a self-imposed blind spot. So what I want you to understand is that if you're going to elicit your hunger, if you're going to get into this deep latent forces, that you're going to activate your awesome, then you've got to be very clear about the why behind what it is that you're doing. And start with that versus the how, right? The how will always show up if the why is big enough. And I mentioned earlier that we have a scale for hunger, and I would encourage you to download it. It's down below, and of course, everything with me has to have start with the same letter. And I created 5 levels of hunger. So there's pathetic, potential, possible, probable, and powerful. And each one of them has a little phrase under it, and I would encourage you to look at not what you say, but the actions you take. Based on your actions, how hungry are you? And if you're not up in that powerful level of watch me, follow me, and I will show you how to realize a dream, why not? What's keeping you from doing that? What's preventing you from tapping into your latent forces of potential and becoming the person you were always meant to become, the person that you know it's possible to become? It's a good question. There have been a lot of these. We'll put this together in a worksheet for you. As always, thank you for watching. I trust that you will use this to make your life better and more powerful. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.